They'd see the cops, they'd make noise, they'd radio, and if they took one for the team, they got the 500. Me and Larry Casilla of Ammo, we went to high school together, and after college, we started this business together that was the detailing shop in New York. It was called New York Motor Club. Larry, then and now, is the detailing master. And I kind of ran the branding, right? I got people in the door, I kept them entertained, and I ran what at the time was sort of an early version of social media for the shop and the website and stuff like that. The detailing shop was called New York Motor Club. There wasn't really a club, but we made a club. And what was so interesting about this club is Larry and I owned the shop. We were like 25, and we started a driving club. The people who were our customers, they would just drive back and forth to the car wash, get their Ferrari washed, have a cigar, and that would be it. We were like, this is dumb. You got to drive your cars. So this was in like '05, very early days of Google Maps. And I got good early at finding routes that like people had just never found, like right in our own backyard practically. Here's all these roads that like, these are here? How did you even find this? I guess the motorcycle guys would dig through maps back in the day, but the car folks really didn't, or at least not in my presence. So I made these crazy routes in Google Maps, and we would go out really early in the morning and go for drives, as you do, right? With the club, what was crazy was a couple things. One, that we were like basically kids running the club, and the club was full of adults, 30s, 40s, and 50-year-old guys, sometimes in their 60s. And they took it really seriously. Not like, we're gonna get together and go for a drive. Like, they had board meetings, they voted people in or out. I mean, they took it seriously. You had to be in the club to get the sticker on your car. I was almost like, well, you guys are taking this really seriously. This is kind of weird, I mean, like, they wouldn't let people in if their car wasn't nice enough or if whatever. We had, interviews. It was silly. It was really silly. And that was outside the cars. That was like in the upstairs of this Italian Goombas restaurant in Harrison, New York, where we used to meet. It was like a mafia thing. It was crazy. But what we would do with the drives, I told you about how I started making videos by videoing these drives. And that's how I hired my first cameraman, because he was the only guy who was crazy enough to hang out of my Corvette at like 150 miles an hour. We didn't have suction cups. It was handheld. It was all handheld. That was all. There was mounts weren't a thing. But the videos of the drives wasn't the craziest part. We wanted to go real fast, right? And we didn't want to get in trouble. And so what I would do is I would hire these high school kids who had like modified Hondas. And I'd have them drive ahead of us real fast and loud, make all the noise to draw the heat. And I had a deal. If you were pulled over on the side of the road by the cops and we drove by, you got $500. And I had to pay it out once. I did. I had to pay the $500 once. But they'd radio, they'd see the cops, they'd make noise, they'd radio. And if they took one for the team, they got the $500. And we would go out and it was like 150 to 170 miles an hour up the 684 freeway in New York at early in the morning, adults acting like children, and I'd have like a catered lunch for them at the end. But the real story is that I hired kids in Hondas to distract the police from what we were doing, and that it worked. So the cars that were in the club, this was 2006. So there was a lot. The Z06, lots of Z06s. They were very popular. C6, Z06, very popular. The M6 and M5s, the V10 cars. Everybody had those. They all had the Eisenman and the Meister shaft exhaust. It was like the piercing. That was the first car I ever did 200 miles an hour in. It was a stick shift M6 convertible. Porsche 997 turbos. Those were very popular. There was a couple of Lamborghinis. I believe there was a Gallardo or two and a Mercy or two. There was a guy with a Diablo. This dude, there's probably be a whole story on this dude. His name was Dave Vitale. And if you look this guy up, he claimed to be some kind of security expert, like Blackwater, right? But he's yoked He's got no neck. And he would drive around in a black H1 Hummer and a yellow Diablo Roadster with a tribal graphic on it. Like imagine you took the SV lettering, but instead of that placement, that size, but ripped the bro tattoo off and tribal. And he had this dude develop a wet fogger nitrous system for this thing that actually, I mean, it was very stupid. All he did was purge the stuff out. But if you open the hood and looked, I mean, it was an extraordinary piece of rigging that went down this Lamborghini's manifold. It was real. And this guy, he was like on the Maury Povich show. He would like help set up stings to catch people cheating. This guy wouldn't blend anywhere. There's nowhere you could put this dude except Gold's Gym where he would blend. And so the idea that this yoked meathead in his yellow Lamborghini were somehow going to set up a sting and catch somebody. I mean, it was ridiculous. But there's still some pictures. I don't know what happened to the guy. When I moved to New York, to LA, the guy was gone. But you know, that guy was in the club and he was ridiculous. Rob Ferretti was a member of the New York Motor Club. And actually, you know what? You know Mike Musto from Hemmings? Mike Musto was member number 3. He was our 3rd member at the club with the 68 Dodge Charger, the Mr. Angry Charger. There was a couple pro touring cars as well. I mean, it wasn't like Veyrons or anything like that. It was a local club in Harrison, Westchester, New York, north of New York City. And it was, mostly young professionals, some blue collar, some white collar. And they took it serious, not just the driving, the organization. There was a ton of car one-upping. The dude, guys, he had a Carrera 4S. One guy gets a turbo. The next week, they all have turbos. There was a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, and it drove business. But I learned a valuable lesson from it, which is that marketing a local business to a global audience is a lot harder than you think. Even really before like Bull Run and Gumball made it to us, they didn't have a lot of these kind of single day driving events back then. And it's a very common thing now. You see it's all the time. Whatever little club goes on a little drive and it's normal. But back then, there really wasn't much to do with the cars. And so we had these events. And then we needed a shop car. Well, we got to have a shop car to lead the drives. Well, we had a limited budget. We had like 50 G's to work with for a shop car, which was not nothing. But so we went, this is the most 25-year-old choice ever. We were like, we'll get a Cobra, a Superformance Cobra. And there's no shortage of those. So we start looking around and we realized a regular 427 Cobra, people have seen that. I mean, it's special Cobra. So there was a guy, and you're a cannonballer and a one-lapper, so you probably know the name Dennis Olthoff. So in, I believe, 2001 or 2, he entered a Cobra in the one lap, and he won. And I bought that car. And that car was a death trap. That car had a ex-Bill Elliott NASCAR engine in it that it had an MSD rev limiter in it. We put the rev limiter at 6, so we didn't die. Made 410 at the tires at 6. You could put a 9 chip in it, and it would get there on race. You'd have to put C16 in it, but we put it on a dyno, and it was 600 at the tires in 2005 in a 2,140-pound Cobra, and the transmission was a 4-speed Jericho crash box. It had no power brakes. The doors were welded shut. It had a 5-gallon fuel cell in it, no speedometer, no odometer, no fuel gauge. Yeah. Okay. It had a tack. It didn't even have a key. It had tabs, battery tabs. This was a race car. And the license plate I got for it was Make You Poo, which was spelled Make Up OO, which is Make You Poo. And this was probably the sketchiest car. Even if I had the skill that I have now, which is average, I would still be like, "Rrr." Back then I had no skill. And this thing it couldn't have been any sketchier. I mean, I think I drove it, you had to stop every 40 miles or so and put gas in it. It's ridiculous. And I think I drove it maybe 10 times before I sold it. We sold it to somebody, and you know what? Now it lives at Spring Mountain in Nevada. It was repainted black. When we had it, it was Nissan 350Z Gold, which is actually a fabulous color. It looked cool as hell. Black wheels, black halibrands, black pipes, black roll bar, gold. It was bitchin'. It was good. Now it's all black, and it's literally some guy's like track toy at Spring Mountain. But that was definitely the most childish car purchase that I have ever made.
Finding your next dream car can be like searching for a needle in a haystack, but the best tool to use is AutoTempest.com. AutoTempest is the smartest and most powerful tool to search for your next car or your dream car because they allow you to search all the major listing sites at once. Their motto is all the cars, one search, and they've been supporting VINwiki for the last 3 years. Quite honestly, it's the first place I go to look when I'm searching for my next car, and I think that you'll absolutely love it. So check them out today at the link in the description below, and thank them for their continued support of VINwiki.